Hello, FinCon community. My name is Bethany Bayless, and I am here with Bobbi Rebell in the financial grown-up kitchen.
Yes, the grown-up kitchen.
I am here
in New York City.
In New York City.
Yes.
In the kitchen.
I think you're our first famous visitor.
Is it? Stop it.
She is.
No.
She's our first celebrity to visit the
I feel like the
kitchen.
celebrity was a little bit, far-fetched.
Oh, no. My husband was out here, fangirling a few minutes ago. He was so excited. He's like, it's Bethany Bayless.
It's not even
her
true.
name sounds like a superhero. This is a true conversation
I'm so excited that my name sounds like a superhero.
It does.
I'm just grateful to be in the kitchen. That's how cool this is.
The grown-up kitchen.
It's so cool. And Bobbi, from this kitchen, you do some pretty cool things.
We do.
And I want to talk about it. So this month we're focusing on video. Mm-hmm. And with video, you use video in a conjunction with another media platform that maybe doesn't need video. So can you just tell me a little bit about what you do for the people who don't know? Because I know everything.
So I am the co-host of a rising star show called Money in the Morning. I co-host it with Joe Saul-Sehy, someone that a few of you might be familiar with. And we tape it live. And not only do we tape it live on video, we do it with a Facebook audience, a live Facebook audience. So we have very high engagement, which is that's a buzzword for anyone involved in, well, not just with video, with all social media, engagement is a big thing. So video is great for engagement. We tape it live on Facebook with the audience participating, and we also, not only does it then go to audio, we also do a YouTube version, which is a new thing. So you can check out Money in the Morning on YouTube, and it's in a slightly different format. So it makes sense if you are interested to check out YouTube as well.
I want to talk about that. Are we allowed to talk about that in just a couple seconds? All right, so I want to start first. You have a podcast that you use Facebook Live.
Yes, so the first place it first is born on Facebook Live. Do we want to talk about the systems that we use a little bit?
Let's talk about the system. Oh my gosh, can we please?
Stuff. It's actually kind of amazing. I don't know all the competitors. I can tell you we use something called BeLive, which is a very robust program because we can have what's called double boxes. I have a background in television. So you can have double boxes, multiple people. You can invite a guest on, and it looks kind of like a TV shot. So you have side-by-side shots. You can bring up photos. I'm not sure you can bring up videos. You can also bring up guest comments in what's called the lower third. Is that what they call it on BeLive?
Yes, it's a lower third.
It's called lower third. I feel like there's another name for it. But anyway.
The comment section?
Well, you can bring up the comments. You can write headlines, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. So there's a graphic happening. And then also you can bring in your own branding, which is nice. You can put your own colors in it, and you can bring in, for example, we have the Money in the Morning logo is prominent throughout the show. And it's especially prominent when I host solo and forget to take it down.
Yeah. Well, and what's the benefit of Facebook?
There's a lot happening.
Why Facebook Live, though? Because there's a lot of forms of video out there. We have YouTube, we have YouTube Live, we have Instagram, we have all these things. But Facebook Live is a very specific kind of, it's only on Facebook. I know that sounds really basic, but why Facebook Live?
Well, I think that is where we originate because we're getting the engagement there. And that has to do with really looking at where your audience is. So I don't think it's an either or. I think it's this and. And it's just a question of where you start. So Money in the Morning started. It was created by Joe Saul-Sehy from Stacking Benjamins. And that's where he had his audience based. So it made sense. That's where he was going to get the most engagement when he started. If you are on a platform where you have engagement, maybe it's YouTube, maybe it's IGTV, Instagram stories, wherever your audience is, that may be the best place to build your base. But I do believe it's going to be an and, not an or, as we go forward. And that we're going to learn to adopt and adapt what we do. So for example, Joe and I, as we grow the show, we started on Facebook Live. We then also do the audio only version. And for the audio only version, we actually improve a lot of the audio. We have magical things that we do that improves the audio so that the audio quality, if you listen to it on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify and so on, the audio will be enhanced. And then we also do little tweaks to make the YouTube version so that we conform to the things that YouTube wants and the things that the YouTube audience wants. So for example, if you listen to Money in the Morning on YouTube, it'll be shorter. Different things. So, and you can see that behind the scenes of all this if you do join our Facebook Live audience. And you can
which I have done because I love having.
Bethany is a frequent fan.
It's so fun to see your name. You know, that I think that's the biggest thing is the engagement comes from the fact of we're kind of like little kids who are like, that's my dance. They're talking about me, and they're showing my picture. Well, everyone sees it.
No, but the funniest thing actually about the engagement is when they forget that we're here. It's almost like the kids in the class are talking, and they don't realize the teacher's right there.
That they can read
everything, and the notes are left afterwards. So sometimes when we're live, I can't really be reading everything that the audience is saying. But afterwards, I see, I'm like, they were talking about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we see all that. It's not secret, just so you guys know. But the engagement's amazing. Yeah. And it becomes part of the show. So I think the tools that are emerging in social media and these different platforms are part of the creative process. And I think they give you a lot more to do. And they make richer content in the end.
Exactly. You're using the same content, but on several different platforms.
Exactly.
Right?
But you're adapting it because every platform has different tones and different needs, and they want you to do different things. This is my husband.
This is a live kitchen.
We did tell him that we were going to be taping. Neil, you realize you're on.
I thought you told me this was audio.
No.
And video.
And video. Also, the great thing about live on Facebook Live is there have been cameos by many members of my family.
You know, I think
it happens.
Live happens, right?
Live happens. Exactly.
It's awesome, but I love. So we're talking about using several different forms, but adapting them to that medium.
Yes,
so we're talking about Facebook Live.
Right.
Facebook Live is fresh. Like that's all you adapt it to Facebook and the Live in the fact that you interact with comments.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That what else do you do specifically for Facebook Live that you might not do with the podcast or YouTube?
Well, for Facebook Live, like I said, we use this system called Be Live where there are tools that are made available to us. So we can, and by the way, I want to say I don't know that these tools are not available in some other form on these other platforms. They may be available for them. But on Facebook Live, we can do lower thirds in our branded colors. We can put our logos up. We can interact with people that can also, they can, for example, you can set notifications. So if you want to join a Money in the Morning taping, you can just set a little bell that'll ding and you'll know we're going to be taping in 2 hours, what have you. So we can tell people, I think up to 24 hours in advance, maybe even longer, that we're going to be taping a show. So we can alert our audience in advance to put it on their calendar, and then they can make an appointment to see us. So one of the things that we are working on is having regular scheduled times so that our audience can depend on us. Because as many creators talk about, having dependable content and being on a regular schedule is something that has been proven to be successful. Now, that said, our podcast is out at the same time 3 times a week. The YouTube is out the same time 6 times a week, believe it or not. So that is coming at a regular time, but the actual tapings have not always been consistent.
That's so interesting too, because it depends on your audience, right? So your audience, if you show up at a time that's spontaneous, that maybe people don't know, they're looking out for it, or they see it 24 hours in advance, then your audience will probably still show up. But I would be interested to see what it looks like when it's scheduled, and if it's the same engagement, because as you know, for FinCon we have it the same time every week, that everyone knows that's when it is, that's where people can find it, and so I really love using video in something that's dominantly and primarily an audio only platform.
Well, it is for now. I think that this is evolving, and I think there is going to be an evolution where more and more podcasts are going to have video elements. And if you look at a lot of podcasters, they are starting to turn the camera on in their studio, and you will see some of the most popular podcasts, they may not be doing a show per se, but there's a camera rolling in the studio, and they will put that up, sometimes quietly, sometimes promote it on YouTube. So I think that the game is changing, and I think video is going to be dominant in podcasts at some point in the next decade. Let's say, I think it took a decade for podcasts to really become mainstream, if we're going to call them mainstream now. I think 10 years from now, podcasts will have the audio, because I think that's part of why they became so popular, because they are so portable, accessible, etc. But I do think that most people will flip the camera on, and that a lot of the resistance, I mean, my other podcast, Financial Grownup, is audio only, and a lot of that is because I wanted to get big name guests, and it wasn't realistic to have them also be asking them to set up a live camera.
Right.
So in order to get those guests, it really had to be audio only. And I also edit it very heavily because I want it to be a certain time, and I want a certain editorial precision in those. So you can't always do that. If you're going to do video, it's going to look a little choppy.
Yeah.
But I do think that 10 years from now, most podcasts will have a component where you can have the option to watch. There will still be the majority of people who enjoy listening to it audio only, because I think that is what makes podcasts so special. It's very intimate. But they're going to be just cameras rolling in the studios. I do think so.
And what do you think is the power of video? Why do you think it's so effective, especially when it comes to this live component?
I think people feel an intimacy with someone that they're watching. I think that it's less polished in a good way. I think there's
much.
I hate the word authentic because that's such an overused word, but it is authentic. That unfortunately is the best descriptive word, that it feels very authentic. It doesn't feel like a big Hollywood studio produced it. It feels like you are part of a conversation with somebody, and that's very special. And that's been a lot of the appeal of the podcast. It's amazing how many corporate podcasts have sort of been put out there, and they have a lot of budget to advertise it, so they will get some numbers, but they don't get the engagement that a lot of the personality-driven podcasts get.
Yeah, definitely. And it's you're able to do it live, have that interaction, which is even more. And like, could you imagine having these
People
guests?
love shout outs.
They love it, and the fact that real time
Yes.
is so engaging.
Yes.
It's incredibly, I can ask you right now, what about this? And you
Yep.
answer me through
I
the
love
video.
that.
Could you
Yeah.
imagine if they did that on TV? Like you're there, you feel like you're there with them.
Well, it's like a call-in show. But,
Yes.
But on the internet.
Right.
Right.
It's more
very much
accessible.
like that.
It's like-
But it's also scary. I mean, look, the reality is Joe is a former financial advisor, so he knows his stuff. I am a certified financial planner. So when they ask a question, let's say we're doing a service piece about 401ks, most times I can answer that question.
Yeah.
So it's not something in the financial world that necessarily everyone can do or wants to do.
Yeah.
But I think it's very powerful, and I think it can be used for a lot of great things. It can be used for authors. I know a lot of book publishers are using formats like this, doing Facebook Lives. I know when I was at Reuters, we did it. We did a lot of Facebook Live. So it's really powerful to get that engagement, and it's all about engagement.
It's absolutely all about engagement. And when, you were setting up for this, did you do Facebook Live before you started Money in the Morning?
I did them at Reuters.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and I did some promoting my book when my book came out, How to Be a Financial Grownup, but that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So I did do some. I was doing some giveaways for charity.
Okay.
We partnered with Donors Choose, so I was doing some giveaway Facebook Lives with them. And that was really fun.
When Joe came to you,
Yes.
he took it to another
Let's just say-
stratosphere. I don't know.
It's a complicated show. It is a technically complicated show, but he had confidence in me, so I do appreciate it. And I did have a technical background because at Reuters, and if you work in media these days, it is unforgiving. I knew how to, for example, people were shocked that I could just do a podcast from my home, but I knew how to track already because I had done that for myself at Reuters. Now, when I started my career at CNBC, there was a whole infrastructure around tracking. There was a whole audio suite, and you had to book an audio engineer's time, and he had to track you, and it had to go into this server and all this stuff. By the time I left, it was GarageBand.
Right.
At your desk, So I knew, and I was comfortable with a lot of the technology, or the idea of a lot of technology. I had never used a mixer, and people that watch Money in the Morning know that I watched so many YouTube videos about what is a mixer, because I couldn't even figure out what's a mixer. So it's been a learning curve. Joe has infinite patience. But it is a complicated show because we also integrate, we have audio elements. So just like Stacking Benjamins has announcers and things like that, we have pre-recorded elements. And because we're doing it live, we are rolling these audio, the sound, into the show live. So it's a little bit complicated to do all that because we've got two different hosts in two remote locations. We've got the Facebook Live happening, and we have the audio show almost happening parallel to the Facebook Live. And sometimes the Facebook Live goes down, but we have to keep talking because the audio is still going. And it's kind of our promise to the listeners. We don't edit it out.
Yeah.
At least we haven't already. That's just, the show goes the way it goes.
Yeah.
So we just keep talking, and sometimes the Facebook goes down and we're bringing it back up while we're still talking, and hopefully the audio audience doesn't know all the stuff that's been happening behind the scenes.
I think it's so interesting because it's a totally different process.
Yes.
Right? So it's something that maybe doesn't come naturally to everyone. Like if I was to go start a podcast and have to figure out all of these like technology, all of these things. So what would you say to someone who sees, maybe what you guys are doing, or they see somebody out there doing this? What are the first steps that they should take when it comes to being comfortable on camera, when it comes to maybe some of the software or programs that they can use, et cetera, et cetera?
I think you have to start with your comfort level.
Right.
And part of that is sort of get over yourself. I know this sounds crazy, but you're going to have a bad hair day. And if you're scheduled to go, you got to go. I don't care if you're not happy with your hair, you got to go.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Right.
You're going to mess up. You're going to make a fool of yourself. I do it all the time. So whenever you want to, feel better about yourself, just watch me on Monday in the morning. Because it is a learning process.
Or me on FinCon.
You just know, but I mean, you just have to get over it and understand that that's part of the fun. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing, is just the psychological hurdle of getting over the fact that you're going to feel like you're making a fool of yourself, and you might be. But that's part of the process. And that's also part of what makes it so authentic, because people are usually out there rooting for you. I used to get very nervous when I did public speaking in front of humans, because that was new to me a few years ago. I had previously only talked to teleprompters, and I had to talk in front of humans. And then I realized as I did these conferences that they were all rooting for me.
Right.
And they were happy to be there. They were excited for the conference, whatever was happening. So realize that the audience is 99% of the time on your side.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a hater, but as my 11-year-old told me when I had a hater, he's like, that just means you're legit. So don't worry about the haters.
Yes.
Don't worry about the haters.
I want that 1-star review one day, because it means that people
You've never gotten a 1-star review?
I know, Bobby. I mean...
Okay, I am officially a Bethany hater. I will be giving Bethany a 1-star review.
Please
just to kind of get her over the hurdle. No, I would never do that to you. I would never. We want to keep you pure in the 5-star world.
But the 1-stars, I mean, you're going to have critics. You're going to have people who maybe don't get your humor, who don't like what your face looks like.
By the way, this happens. You could also have people that don't understand that 1-star is not the best. People have done that. Book reviews. I love this book. Best thing ever. Everyone should read it. 1-star.
1-star. The number 1
Because they did
star.
not understand that that's the rating system. So it might even be a star of love.
Well, and so
anyway, in terms of starting.
Yeah, I love that concept of trusting your audience.
Yes.
I have to remember that my audience is there for a reason. Mm-hmm. They started, watching the show. They started doing something for a reason, and you just got to keep being you and who you are.
Yes. And also there's something to be said for continuity, consistency, and doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at these podcasts, we were talking off camera about our mutual friend, Farnoosh Sharabi. She is getting close to 1,000 podcasts. Of course she's good. Now, Farnoosh, I'm sure, was great the first episode. But also, she's probably better now, having almost 1,000 under her belt.
Just got to keep doing it.
So a lot of it has to do with just showing up. I remember, I won't name it, but there was an anchor at CNBC that was so nervous when he first went on. I was a production assistant. This is 20 years ago. And he would get so nervous every day. And he'd be like, I need a tagline. I need this. I need this. And you know what? Eventually, he's still on the air. They never took him off. Got over it. And the other anchors used to tell him, you just have to keep showing up, and you just have to keep doing it, and eventually you forget how stressed out you are, and you just do it.
But what if you mess up?
It doesn't matter.
But
you will.
What happens? What do you do?
Nothing. You just keep going.
Good.
Or you can be a type A. If it's a tape thing, you can actually edit it out. But to some degree, don't do that, because if you're constantly making yourself look so flawless, you're really not going to be that relatable. So sometimes people say when you're doing something like a podcast, it's important to leave in some of the and and like. If you say not too often. But it's okay to not be perfect, because that goes to relatable. Yeah. If they wanted somebody perfectly polished, they probably would not be your audience. I mean, they're going to go for somebody. Well, I don't even know who's that perfect. Come on. Do we really want that perfect? No.
Not me.
No. But in terms of what platform, I think you go where your audience is where you start, where you're going to have that support. So for Monday in the Morning, it was started by Joe Salcihai, and his audience was the Stacking Benjamins audience in the it's facebook.com/iStackBenjamins. That's where his audience was. So that's why it made sense to start there. But if you have an audience on YouTube, that's where you should start. Same thing with Instagram or IGTV. If that's where your people are, go to your people. They will support you. And that's where you're going to feel most comfortable.
Yeah. So we've talked about, feeling comfortable. We talked about the softwares that you can use. We've talked about consistency and what to do with your haters. Is there anything else that you would want to add when it comes to using a video live platform for a podcast, or just using a live in general, whether it comes to the benefits or anything else? Anything you want to add?
Well, first of all, I think it's important not to go out and spend a ton of money, because people can make that mistake. And I've had people come to me and they want to buy extremely expensive microphones, equipment, what have you. You can, but maybe not first. First, start with something else. You could borrow equipment. Make sure you know which software you're going to use before you really commit to something and spend a lot of money. So I would definitely be careful, because we have all kinds of stories of people that are like, I'm doing it, and they buy everything, and then they might use some or not, or move on to a different project. Hello, my course that I was going to make. I didn't make the course that I was going to make, but I didn't invest in a ton of equipment. So I would definitely be mindful of not going in fully until you know what you're doing. Definitely get involved. For example, if you can get into the Facebook FinCon group, that's a great resource to find out what to buy, or if somebody in your area has something you can borrow or team up with, because a lot of this equipment, I mean, we have a ring light behind us right now. That was a couple $100. I mean, everything does add up. So you can end up spending a lot of money very quickly before you're necessarily sure what you want to be using. So do your research. Again, the FinCon community is a great resource for that. And I think there'll probably be some panels on that. I mean, before I bought my first microphone, I went to a presentation by Steve Stewart, who ended up being the editor of Financial Grownup a couple years later. But that was my first exposure to FinCon, and I went and bought the microphone that Steve Stewart told me to buy. And we are actually using those microphones today.
Yes,
so
ATR
definitely,
2100.
leverage the FinCon community and learn the kind of equipment that you need, the kind of resources, what's worked for people, what mistakes they've made, because everyone's got a different story. There's a million variations of video experiences. A lot of it is still evolving, and I do think it's going to be a lot of and. You're going to start on one platform. You're not going to abandon that platform, but you're going to adapt to expand onto different platforms.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I know personally, it's you start with what you have.
Yes.
And then
start with where your audience is.
Start where they're at. Start where your comfortable level is, or wherever. But then maybe add one thing.
Right.
And then maybe another thing. Right. And you just start building.
Yeah, I think it's okay to not do certain things. So, for example, Financial Grownup is just now. We are starting to do YouTube now, and I am approaching episode 200, and we're going to start loading. We're going to start backloading them. So there'll be an episode starting very soon. We'll have an episode until we get through the 200 and catch up. But I didn't want to go on YouTube until I had a YouTube strategy. So we just weren't on YouTube, and now we have a YouTube strategy. Love the graphics that my VA has put together, and I think they look fantastic. I'm excited for them to be on YouTube, but I wasn't prepared to do YouTube properly, so I just didn't do it. And I think it's better to be thoughtful when you approach adding a platform than to just throw it out there. So
I think that's great.
I had done a couple episodes, I threw them out there, and then I was like, this is stupid. They just weren't what they should look like on YouTube. They weren't YouTube-esque. So you have to they have different personalities.
Yes.
I mean, we just did Pinterest 6 months ago. We started expanding to Pinterest. So now there's Pinterest for Financial Grownup. And we had to figure out we used the branding, but you tweak it because it has a different culture and a different way that people interact on different platforms. So you can't just throw what works on Facebook onto Pinterest. You have to adapt it. And I think that goes for video as well. The tone of Instagram television is going to be very different from the tone of Facebook, from the tone of YouTube, or anything else.
I think that's great. I don't think I can add to that. And so, with that, Bobbi, thank you so much for letting me come into the kitchen.
I know. Let's go have some cauliflower pizza.
Done. Thank you, and bye. My endings.
Will you be cutting out my husband?
I don't know. I kind of want to leave it in.
I was like, even if it was audio only, I'm like,